Okay, do you remember where we stopped last class yesterday? Anyone? Which section were we discussing? The main heading or the main section which we were covering yesterday. Can you name that? Nobody knows? Hello? We were discussing about one life cycle model. Can you name that model? Vishnu? Vishnu's here?
Yeah.
Okay, Vishnu. Yesterday we were discussing about one life cycle model. Can you name that model?
മറന്നുപോയോ?
Marunai. Okay. So it was EDLC. EDLC, that is Embedded Product Development Lifecycle Model. Okay, just like you have studied waterfall model and all, here for embedded products, you have a lifecycle model, and that is called EDLC, Embedded Product Development Lifecycle Model. And I said that there are 9 phases in EDLC, and we discussed the need phase, the activities that come under need phase, then the conceptualization phase. What are the activities involved in conceptualization phase was also discussed. Then we went to analysis phase. The various activities in analysis phase was also covered yesterday. Then we started with design phase. Okay, so we are in the 4th phase of EDLC. Total, there are 9 phases in EDLC, and we started 4th phase yesterday, and that is design phase. Is it clear? Is it clear to you? Hello? Okay. Okay. So we'll go to design phase. Now, as you know, and I think I asked you a question yesterday, design phase, there are 2 major phases. Even in software engineering, when we study the design phase, there are 2 major phases in design phase. And the first phase is the preliminary design or high level design. And the second phase in design is detailed design or low level design. So these are the 2 phases in design phase, and sub phases in the design phase. And usually design phase starts with preliminary design, and then after the completion of preliminary design, it goes to more detailed design, and that is why it is called detailed design or low level design. That is low level design. It gives all the minute features, the algorithms, or the lowmost level. We are writing programs, or how an algorithm can be, what are the algorithms that are used to implement a functionality. And in depth, it goes in depth. The design goes in depth in detailed design. So let us see what are the activities carried out in preliminary design or high level design. So in high level design, the designers, they just focus on what are the functionalities that should be implemented in the system, and they develop a top level architecture for the product. In preliminary design, they develop a top level or an abstract view of the product. That is a top level architecture for the product, and they will list out the various functional blocks that are there in the product. So what are the functionalities, what are the major functional blocks in the product will be decided during the preliminary design phase. And also, once the major functional blocks have been decided, they will decide or define the inputs and outputs for each functional block. What are the inputs to each functional block? what will be the output from each block, and also they are not focusing on the internal details of this functional unit. They are not focusing on how these functions can be implemented, but what are the basic functional unit that can be used to build the final product. Only that decision is taken in preliminary design. And also, if you're giving one input, what will the functional unit give us as output? So input, output, etc. is determined in this stage. And also, this since we doesn't know the internal structure of that functionality, then it is considered, each functional block is considered as a black box. That is, the internal details are not considered at this stage. How it is implemented, how the functionality is implemented is not considered in this preliminary design. So we can consider each functional block as a black box. Have you heard of black box testing and all? Have you heard of black box testing and white box testing? Okay, what is black box testing? So black box testing is nothing but we are giving in an input to a functional unit and checking and verifying whether the output that we are getting is correct. We are not focusing on the internal, yes, software testing, we use it. Different types of tests are there. One is black box, other is white box. Again, different types of black box testings are there, and different kinds of white box testing is also there. So testing a system without knowing the internal details is black box testing, and testing a system by tracing through the internal details. You know the internal details, how the data is flowing internally in the system, and testing in that manner is called white box testing. So similarly, in preliminary design, each functional unit is considered as a black box. That is, only the input and output is defined. And this figure illustrates that the preliminary design. That is, in preliminary design, the major functional blocks are defined. One is the functional block 1, then you have functional block 2, etc. up to functional block n. So n functional blocks are defined here. And for each functional block, you can see that the input to the block and output from the block is also shown. So the designers decide what will be the input to each block. So similarly for the second block, what is the input? For the nth block, what is the input, etc. And what are the outputs that are that will be obtained, etc. will be defined in preliminary design. Also, they can define the constraints on each functional block. What are the conditions to be satisfied when implementing each of these functionalities? Also, the assumptions, there are certain assumptions that will be followed when we write certain code. So assumptions, if any, can also be suggested during this phase. So this shows n different blocks, n functional units, and each of these functional unit has input, output, and the constraints and assumptions, if any. All these external entities are all about the input, output, etc. Is decided during the preliminary design phase. Is it clear? This figure is important for preliminary design. Is it clear to you? Is it clear to you? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Shall I proceed? Okay, Vishnu. So, this figure, it shows preliminary design, and in this design, you can, the designers just show the input, and also they will show what the output we will obtain from this functional unit, and what are the constraints and what are the assumptions. So here I have written the expansion of each of these letters. Next, when you complete, after completing the preliminary design, on completion of the preliminary design, you get a preliminary design document, or a PDD. In short, you call it as PDD. So the preliminary design document is sent for review to the end user. Again, the end user will review the document, and if they want to make any modifications, they can give their suggestions to the developers, to the designers. So after each stage, There are documents prepared, and these documents are sent for review to the end user. So is it clear? So the output of the preliminary design is PDD, or the preliminary design document. Is it clear? Is it clear? What is the output of the preliminary design phase? What is the output of preliminary design phase? Sarga. Sarga is present? Hello? Sarga, are you present here? Shabnam. Hello? Why nobody is hearing? Okay, Shabnam. Okay, PDD. Now PDD, it is, what is the expansion of PDD? Amrita? Very good. Preliminary design document. So that is the output of preliminary design phase. After the preliminary design phase, we get the preliminary design document. Very easy to remember since it's the same name as that of that phase. Then after preliminary design, the next design phase is detailed design. So design has two phases. One is preliminary design or high level design. And the second phase is detailed design or low level design. So what happens in detailed design or low level design? These are the activities carried out in detailed design or low level design. That is, it generates a detailed architecture of the system, and it lists out the various components for each functional block. In high level design, only the functional blocks were defined, but in detailed design, it lists out the various components that are needed for each functional block. What will be the components that make up each functional block? It will be listed in detailed design. Then also, if there are multiple components within a functional block, then the interconnection among these units will also be mentioned. And not only within the components, but between functional blocks also will be detailed here. Then also, as I said, detailed design, it focuses on the algorithms, mainly on the algorithms. So it will go into that extent on how to build the system. Like looking at the algorithm, we should be able to directly implement the system as codes. So this detailed design will give us the most detailed view of the system in the form of algorithms. So is it clear? So detailed design, it focuses on a detailed architecture. Then it lists out the components that make up the components for each functional block. Then it shows the interconnection among these functional block as well as the components within the functional block. And also it defines the control algorithms. So these are the main things that are happening in detailed design. Like how we demonstrated the preliminary design using a diagram, detailed design can also be represented using this diagram. So hope you will understand this. The outer layer. It shows the functional blocks, the oval symbols. It shows the functional blocks, its input, output, the constraints and assumptions. So the outer layer, it was the same as that of high level design, but in detailed design, it focused on the internal parts of each functional block. The internal structure of each functional block is defined in detailed design, as well as the interconnection among the functional blocks and components. So it is demonstrated in this figure. So the internal structure of each functional block, in the functional block or in the module 1, we have just showing two components, C1 and C2, and they are connected to each other. They are exchanging data or signals with each other. And also in the module 2, the functional block 2, there are two components, C1 and C2. Again, they are communicating with each other. And also we have two modules, M1 and M2. They are also connected to each other. So these connections, we define it as IC, is shown here as IC. That is, IC refers to the interconnection. There is connection between these components. Is it clear? And here M1 and M2, they are defined modules. Then C1 and C2, they make up the components of the functional block. Then the other four is the same as that of high-level design, that is input, output, constraints, and assumptions. Everything is there except the internal structure is given more importance in detailed design, or the internal structure of each functional block is defined in detailed design. Is it clear? Any doubts? Is it clear to you? Okay, Amrita. Okay. So, finally, on completion of the detailed design, you get a document called the detailed design document. Just like here, after the completion of preliminary design, you got a preliminary design document. After the completion of a detailed design, you get a detailed design document. The short form is not there in the text and all. It is called detailed design document. And again, just like how the PDD was sent for review, the detailed design document is also sent for review to the end user or the client. So, is it clear to you? So, we had two levels of design. One is the preliminary design or high-level design. With a block diagram, we had shown what high-level design is. And the next phase of design is detailed design or low-level design. Again, I had just represented diagrammatically as follows. And then there are, apart from these two design activities, let us see what are the other activities carried out during design phase. So the other activities performed during, apart from high level and low level design, there are certain additional activities carried out during a design phase. And what are those activities? Let us see. It includes the design of operations and maintenance manual. So certain documents are prepared during design phase, and one such document that is prepared is the operations and maintenance manual for reference purpose. Then we have design of training materials. Whenever a system is newly developed, users have to be trained to use the system. So training materials has to be provided. Then these activities carried out during the design phase is summarized as follows. That is, you have preliminary design one activity, and after preliminary design, you get preliminary design document. Then another activity carried out is detailed design, and after detailed design, you get detailed design document. Then apart from these two, that is after preliminary design and detailed design, these are the additional activities carried out in design phase, that is operations manual design, maintenance manual design, and product training materials design, as we said here. Operations manual design, maintenance manual design, and training materials design. So these are the three manuals that are created along with preliminary and high level, preliminary and low level design. So is this figure clear to you? This shows the summary of design phase. That is, it has two phases. One is preliminary design, and outcome of preliminary design is the preliminary design document. Then there is the detailed design. Outcome of detailed design is detailed design document. Apart from preliminary and detailed design, there are three more activities carried out. That is development of manuals. One is the operations manual, another is maintenance manual, and the last is the product training manual design. So operations manual is necessary for educating the user on how to operate the product. So operations manual shows how to operate the product, and it defines, it helps the end user to operate the product. Then maintenance manual is essential for providing information on how to handle the product in situations like non-functioning or failure. So if the product fails, or if there is a failure, this looking at the maintenance manual, they will be able to find out what the error or the what the malfunctioning is about. So these are the two documents. Of course, training materials are there depending on which are the sections or which are the product sections that needs training, which are the product sections that can be used or referred to easily by the end users, etc. So operations manual is necessary for educating the end user to operate the product, and maintenance manual is necessary in situations where the product is non-functioning, or suppose when a failure occurs to the product, we can refer the end users can refer the maintenance manual. So these are the different activities carried out in design phase. So apart from preliminary design and high level design, 3 documents are also prepared during design phase. Is it clear? Is this design phase clear to you? Sriraj? Hello? Subin? Okay. Okay. So that was the 4th phase. That is design phase. Next, we are going to the 5th phase, that is development and testing phase. There are a total of 9 phases. Now we have reached the 5th phase, that is development and testing. Now, development and testing phase, it transforms the design into a realizable product. That is, we are going to develop the product. We have designed the product. Next, we are going to develop the product. And while we are developing, we are also going to test the product. Because once it is developed, we have to automatically test it to see whether it is functioning properly. So this phase is called development and testing phase. And the development phase, the aim of this development phase is to transform the design. The previous phase was design phase. So once they get the documents from the design phase, looking at the document, they should be able to translate it into a realizable product. As we said earlier, the detailed design will give the detailed algorithms and all. So looking at those algorithms, they should be able to develop the product. So development activities that are carried out include, so in this phase, there are certain development activities carried out. It is the development phase. So there will be development activities that are carried out, and it includes the embedded hardware development. Since it is an embedded product development, you have to develop the hardware, then you have to develop the firmware, and also it has to develop the product enclosure development, that is the mechanical components that are needed inside the system also has to be developed. So the first activity is embedded hardware development. It refers to the development of the components that we place on the PCB. There is a PCB onto which we are going to solder the components. So it refers to the development of the component placement platform on the PC. That is the PCB using. There are certain tools that help us to design this. That is CAD tools and fabrication tools. Using computer-aided manufacturing tools and computer-aided design tools, it helps us to place the components on the process control board. Then, the second is the embedded firmware development. After deciding or after doing the hardware activities, development activities, we have to integrate firmware. We have studied the integration techniques, etc., in module 3 and 4 and all. So the embedded firmware development, it refers to developing firmware using embedded firmware development tools. Now we have IDE tools and all for testing and developing firmware, and using those tools we are developing the embedded firmware. The actual development is happening in this phase only. Then product enclosure development, it shows the mechanical enclosure design. That is, what are the components that can be designed internally and that can be modeled using AutoCAD, and all the internal structure can be designed using AutoCAD. So these are the 3 activities that are carried out for embedded product development. And apart from these 3 activities, there are other activities also, and that includes the component procurement. You have to buy the components. Then preparation of test cases, test case procedures. You have to prepare test cases, then prepare the test files, development of, that is, you have to prepare the input files and all, then development of detailed user deployment operations and maintenance manuals, for user manual, then deployment manual, operations manual, and maintenance manual. We have studied about operations and maintenance manual earlier also. So anyway, it is looked into detail in this phase. That is, the operations manual and maintenance manual are developed in detail in this phase. Apart from that, user manual and deployment manual are also prepared during this phase. So these are the additional activities that are carried out during the development and testing phase. So apart from these additional activities, it is also doing the testing, because this phase is concerned with development and testing. Now we have discussed about what are the development activities. Now we are going to the testing phase and the testing activities. As you know, earlier we have said that testing can be different kinds. And here the difference is that after development, we have to test both hardware and firmware. So this includes, as usual before, unit testing. That is, it deals with testing the embedded hardware and different modules of firmware. After integrating the firmware into the hardware unit, we have to test each unit of the system, embedded product. And that is known as unit testing. That is, after embedding the firmware into the hardware of a particular unit, we are testing that unit alone. And that is known as unit testing. And during unit testing, there is unit test plan and unit test cases are also identified, and these test cases are tested during this phase. Unit testing is done during this phase. So next level of testing is integration testing. As you know, you have studied earlier also, integration testing is the next level. Here in unit testing, we are testing individual units. Now we are going to combine these units with other units, and then we are going to test the entire the combined unit, and that is called integration testing. And testing the product after integrating firmware and hardware, and also now you're going to test it in parts, that is connecting it to another component and testing whether the interface between these components is working properly. Now, when all smaller components have been integrated, the next phase is system testing, that is testing the whole system, is system testing. So once the system is tested, what are the conditions? What should be included in system testing? That is, you have to test all the functional requirements as well as the non-functional requirements. You must test the system to see if all the functional requirements as well as the non-functional requirements are met by the system. And this is system testing is a kind of black box testing. We are just giving in the input and we are just checking if we are getting the desired output. So system testing is a form of black box testing. And finally, yesterday, even in testing phase, I think we have said all these tests. There is acceptance testing. Acceptance testing is the testing the product by the end user. Finally, after the development team has tested all these, that is, development team will perform unit testing, integration testing, and system testing. So once they find that the system is ready to be handed over to the customer, they will give the system, they will hand over the system to the customer to test it. And so testing the product against all acceptance criteria given by the end user and to check if they can, if it is acceptable by the end user is known as acceptance testing. So now, what are the things or what are the output that we get after design and testing phase? That is, you get the firmware source code deliverables. That is, what are the components that we get after this phase? You get the firmware source code, you get the finished hardware, then you get all the test plans, the test cases, and test report. At the end of development and testing phase, you get the firmware source code because development is over. So the first firmware source code is ready. Then the hardware is ready. We have integrated the firmware into the hardware and it has become a functional unit now. And after getting this functional unit, we have developed the test plans and all test plan. We have tested using certain inputs and those test cases. And finally, when we gave a particular test case, what is the output? They are all documented in the test reports. So these are the different outputs that we get at the end of this phase, that is development and testing phase. Is it clear? Is it clear to you? Hello? Saurabh, is it clear to you? Okay, Amrita. Saurabh is here? Saurabh? Are you present? Yes, I was happy to see your answer sheet. Okay, second series answer sheet. You had written one question which others have not written. Okay, the 9th question. Okay. So, okay. Now, the sixth phase, that is the deployment phase. So now we are going to deployment is giving away the system to the customer, or we call it as the first customer shipping, FCS. And it is the process of launching the first fully functional product. We are going to launch the first product even after acceptance testing, and when everything is found to be correct, functioning properly, we are launching the system into the market. So this launching process is a big process when compared to when we look at industry from the point of view of industry. So it is the process of launching the first fully functional model of the product in the market, or handing over the product to the end user or client. So this is known as first customer shipping, or FCS. And again, there are certain tasks involved in this phase, and that is notification of product deployment. That is usually we can see that when new products are reaching the market, it has to be given importance that people should notice that this product is launching in the market. So it will be a big procedure, and all the information about its launching process will be communicated to all stakeholders and even the public. And if it is a commercial product, it will be even through media, email, etc. And you might have seen in newspapers and all, when certain products are launched or certain mobile phones are entering the market, there will be a big advertisement. So this is done along with this launching process. They will show the deployment schedule, that the date, time, and venue of when the product will be launching. Then the brief description about the product, what are the facilities available in this product, then the targeted end users, and extra features supported with respect to existing product. Only then people will buy this product, or people will be aware of this product. So what are the extra features that are supported in this product when compared to the existing product? And then product support information, including the support person whom they should contact for more information, etc. The contact number, mail ID, etc. will be given along with it. So if anybody is interested to know more about the product, they can contact this person. So these are the informations that will be given away with the notification of product. And this is one task that is involved in deployment phase. Then next activity is execution of training plan. That is, any product, when a new product enters the market, there should be a training for each product. And so proper training will help to reduce the possible damages to the product, as well as the operating person. If it is an industry application, it is a huge machinery, then the people should be properly trained to use it. Otherwise, it can result in damage to the person as well also. So user manuals help us to understand product to a certain extent, but still training has to be given depending on the product. Then there is product installation, and install the product as per installation document. And this ensures that it is fully functional. So once you're installing the product, it should be done as per installation manual. And once it is done as per the manual, it will become fully functional. And then the product post-implementation review. Product post-implementation reviews after the product is put into use. After end users have started using the product, review should be conducted in order to find out what are the problems they face. And also this helps us to understand the needs and the expectations for the next version of the product. So product post implementation review is needed, and this is done to determine the success of the product in the market. Then also it will, if there are any problems, you can document the problems faced not only during operation but also during installation. If there are any installation difficulties, they are also noted down, so that in the next version a remedy can be adopted, and the solutions to overcome them are also identified. It also helps to understand the customer needs, whether the customer is fully satisfied or whether they expect something more. The expectations in the next products, next version of the product is also determined with post-implementation review. So this is what is done during deployment phase. So the product is launched into the market, that is training is given, installation is done, and review is conducted. These are the different activities that happen in the deployment phase. So now the product is in operation and it is being used by the end users. Now the seventh phase is support phase. Support phase means when the system is in operation or the product is in use, and if some problem arises, proper support should be given to the end user. If proper support is not available, then the next time the customer will hesitate to buy the product. So there should be a proper support. That is, this phase deals with operation and maintenance of the product in a production environment. The maintenance when the product is in use or when the machinery is in use in the production environment, the proper support should be given, and bugs in the product may be observed and they must be reported during the operations phase. Also, this phase ensures that the product meets the user needs. So all support should be given, and this is known as after service. If after service is good, then people will be interested in buying the product. If not, then if the service is poor, then people may not buy the product. So the activities that are involved in support phase are: set up a dedicated support wing or customer care unit. So during support phase, what they do is to handle the problems faced by the customers. They will set the company or the organization will set up a dedicated support wing or customer care unit. And this is done to ensure high quality service to the end user. And this after service, it plays an important role in commercial market. If that is poor, then most of the product fails in the market. And another activity is identify bugs and areas of improvement. That is, certain operating conditions may be missed out during our design phase, and we have to identify what are the missing things, and these missing conditions may arise as bugs in the product behavior. So they should be identified and conduct product specific surveys. As you know, when products are launched into the market, the companies will take surveys to analyze what the customer feels like after using the product. So conduct product specific survey and collect as much data as possible from the end user. Only end users will be able to give accurate information about the usage of the product. So these are the activities that are done during support phase. That is, after service should be implemented, and also identify bugs and areas of improvement by using surveys and collecting information from the end user. Is it clear? So we have 2 more phases to complete, 8th and 9th phases remaining. Any doubts? Any doubts? Suban? Hello? Okay, now you can see your attendance, please. Abhilash? Abhinav? Number 5? Answer 6. Number 6. Number 7. Arjun. Okay. Number 8. Number 8, Ashwin. Ashwin undo. Okay. Ashwin. Atul Dinesh, Atul Satyapal. Okay. Fajar. Fabina. Okay. Number 14. Okay. 16, 17, 18, 20, 20. Ramesh. Then 22. Okay, okay. Ramesh present. Sharath. Number 22. I didn't see your attendance. Okay. Sarga. number 23, number 24, number 26, number 27, number 28, number 29, number 30, number 31, number 31, Ashwati. I think I saw Ashwati here. Okay. Number 32. Number 32, Didina. Okay. Number 33. Number 3. Okay. So all are present. Okay. Thank you.